Welcome to the Rise of the Super Being podcast. I'm your host, Vanderson Pires, and today my guest is Stephanie Clare. Stephanie is the Chief Executive of Age Concern New Zealand. We just been talking a little bit before I introduce more about Stephanie. So we'll talk about by 2051, 1.18 million people is going to be over the age of 65 in New Zealand. This means it's 15.2% of the whole population. Stephanie, welcome. And also you're a nurse as well. Oh, I forgot to mention that. That's a very important information.
Thank you for having me here. Yes, it's a very important point. We all need nurses to look after us at some point, don't we?
Yes, yeah. How did you start your journey? Oh, by the way, at my family, my mom is a nurse, my sister is a nurse as well. Yeah, it's on the family.
Fantastic.
I have a little soft spot for nurse because of that.
I started my journey many years ago. I started because I finished my college years, and I thought, what can I do that gives me an opportunity to help people? I know you hear this a lot with nurses, but it's also at that point in time, nursing had moved from the hospital training to the university training, and that interested me because I was interested in things that I could make a difference in, and that wasn't people's health, but it was understanding the science of nursing. It was understanding what I could do and what people could do themselves by informing people of choice.
That's awesome. And where did you grow up?
I was born in Wanganui many years ago, and when I was young, my parents went over to Australia to live. So I grew up in a little place in Queensland called Mount Isa. Mount Isa is a mining town, and then when I got older, my parents returned back to New Zealand, and so did I.
Ah, that's awesome. So, Stephanie, how about the age concern in New Zealand? So, how did you get involved with that? And what it is, what the work they do?
It's a really interesting story, but it's more interesting that you're interested in it. So thank you so much. Age Concern New Zealand is a charity organisation, and it's dedicated to over 65-year-olds. It's a very old organisation. It's 70 years old itself. It was established in Dunedin, and in Dunedin, the locals got together and they supported older people with food, with driving services, with activities, and driving people to health events. And they sort of met the needs of the community at the time. So there was no one doing that at that point. And over the years in New Zealand, people have got together and said, that sounds like a really good idea. We'd like to do that as well. So we've grown over the 70 years of local activities in local communities, and each of them enrolling as an age concern member council in their area, and we have 33 of them now across New Zealand. So from the Kaitai, the far north, right down to Invercargill. And we run different programs across New Zealand for older people to stay connected, to learn about staying safe and driving courses, to learn about exercise, to learn about cooking for themselves, to just be connected, to volunteer, to support. And our national office, which is where I come from, the Age Concern New Zealand, is like the organisation that everyone is a member of. And so our local members are supported by us at a national level.
That's so interesting. That's awesome. And also, I met you, this premiere of the movie, The Father, and it was shocking to watch that, and I think the movie was so well done. So what was your opinion about the movie? By the way, for the ones that are listening or watching us, check it out because it's so relevant to what we are talking right now, The Father.
That's right. So The Father is about an older gentleman who develops dementia, and his family caring for him and worrying for him as he goes through his journey of dementia. But it's a great movie because it confuses the watcher. It doesn't know what time of the day it is. You don't know which home you're in. You don't know which story you're watching. You don't know what he's really seeing. It's quite confusing. That confronts yourself to say, actually, if it's confusing for me watching this movie, what must it be like for that older gentleman going through that process? And many of us who watch the movie are quite moved by it because it is quite confronting.
Yes.
And it's sad and it's joyful and it's confusing. And I know some of my friends who watched the movie went and called their father afterwards just to check on them.
My wife did the same thing.
Yeah. It prompts us, doesn't it? Because the most important thing, people in our lives, are our family. And it's a great little reminder.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because I was doing some for example, some of the challenges of getting old, so engagement and purpose, to trying to find something as well to keep, because we heard lots of people, who get, they go for the retirement process and they become very depressed. And what's your thoughts about that, Stephanie?
The number one thing we all need in life is a purpose. We needed a purpose when we were younger. We certainly needed a purpose in our working years. And as we get older, we still need a purpose. So retirement almost removes that purpose from our future. So if you were working as a jiu-jitsu trainer, or if you were working as a person in a bank, or if you were working as a nurse, when you finish that work component of you still need a purpose. So we know that having purpose as we live is really important. And as we get older, that purpose doesn't diminish. We still want to have purpose. We want to look after our family if we've had children. We want to give back to our community if we've done that. We want to keep mattering in the community. We want to have purpose. So if you want to have purpose, one of the things in New Zealand you can do is volunteer. And we know how important volunteering is to keeping communities running, sports groups running, communities like ourselves, organisations like ourselves. We wouldn't be able to operate without our volunteers. They they run our programs, they visit our older people, they run each of the member councils as governors, they make decisions, they fundraise. They open the doors, they put the chairs out. I guess it can go on and on. So purpose is really important. But alongside purpose is also social connection. So being connected to somebody. And when you're working, that social connection happens because you go to work. You might see someone every day, you might have a boss, you might have colleagues. Again, when you finish work, that connection can get lost. So it's not about losing that connection, it's about what connections next if you are to retire. So if you have left your workplace, what can you do to fill that gap way in advance of leaving? So what can you volunteer with? Who can you connect with? And I think that social connection gives you components of that purpose, but it also gives you that wonderful well-being and that satisfaction. So social isolation and loneliness, and we've heard about loneliness particularly around COVID, but loneliness is a huge health issue facing the World Health Organization. So loneliness can have more detrimental effects to your health than smoking.
Yeah, I read that. That's shocking.
Isn't it? So once upon a time, we would say loneliness wouldn't have huge issue, but we do know now that psychologically and physiologically, loneliness has huge impact on your health. So we age concern, we want to make sure that you are connected, that you have purpose, and that you've got somewhere to belong.
Because I even read, loneliness can contribute to dementia.
Yes, so that comes around also around that cognitive development or cognitive maintenance. Remembering people's names can help you keep your brain moving, exercising your brain, learning new things, learning your language, going to a group and learning something new is really important. So if you can do things that are not hard work, but actually just social connections to keep your well-being up, it's a pretty powerful opportunity, isn't it? Yeah. So yes, I think everyone should belong somewhere. Yeah. And if you don't know where to belong, you can give me a call, because one of the things we did in COVID is we established a free phone line, because people out there in the community want to know. So if you want to ring 0800 65 to 105, you can get hold of a local age concern somewhere in New Zealand.
That's awesome. I'm going to put all the information available.
Fantastic.
Yes.
But often people will say, how do I get hold of you? I don't have an internet. Because that's the other thing too, is in a digital age, not everyone has an internet or a device.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, so people still have phones. They still ring up. They ring up their families. And so that's another way of us staying connected. No, you shouldn't be alone if you don't need to be. You can contact someone somewhere.
So Stephanie, how New Zealanders are treating their elderly?
Uh, we need to value all lives. We need to value all ages. So our seniors are as important as our youth in my world and in the world of New Zealand. But we need to remind ourselves that when we get older, we might need a bit of help. We should still be valued as much as we are when we're younger. And there's no reason not to be. So we should treat each other with dignity and respect. We shouldn't matter what age you are. It shouldn't matter how long you've been in a job. Shouldn't matter to anybody except yourself. So we need to treat all our seniors with dignity and respect. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't. You can see some things about that, can't you? And someone will... for example, sometimes I've been in a supermarket queue, and at the front of the queue there's an older person, and they can't find their money, or they can't work out what their PIN number is to pay for their groceries, or they're just taking their time. And you can see behind them, people are getting annoyed, and they're making noises, so you know they're annoyed. And you just think, actually, that could be you one day. Just take your time. Let that person go through. Now, if you want to join our pledge, because we've got a pledge to be a dignity champion, and that's a pledge to make sure that you stand for the rights of our seniors, stand for the rights of that person who should not be treated like that by the people behind them. So you can join and become a dignity champion of age concern as well.
That's awesome. How can we do that?
I'll give you the information. It's back on our website.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But if we all do that together, we were all so kind to each other in COVID. We kept an eye on our neighbours. We waved at people and we smiled at people, didn't we?
Yeah.
We knew we were together trying to fight this horrible pandemic. We want to keep doing that, but we want to remind people that it's okay to get old, it's okay to be connected, it's okay to forget your keys, it's okay to take your time, because it's okay to be here and to be supported.
It's not that difficult, huh?
It's not that difficult, is it? You think about it. We let a little toddler take their time across on a footpath to get somewhere, and we don't do that when we see an older person with a pushchair or a wheelchair. Why do we do that?
Yeah, so true. Another one of the problems as well as it's the financial awareness as well, not to prevent scams, and because they become we become easy targets, for scams and all of that. Is that right?
So we have a number of programs at Age Concerns across New Zealand, and one of them is our visiting service, where we've got volunteers that visit older people. But the other thing we're very alert to as well is elder abuse. So elder abuse in our world could be anything from a psychological abuse. So we sometimes hear from where family members have taken their grandchildren away from older people, or don't visit any longer and are nasty, or you have financial abuse, where you're actually taking money off your loved one. Mum's got extra money, so I'm helping myself to her bank account or her house without her permission. Well, there's something that I'm taking advantage of her in a repeated action, so I'm doing it often. Or there's another place there that we do know that happens, and that's the financial scams. So scams, once upon a time, might have been someone at your door saying, can you give me money? Now they're online. Now they're sending me emails. Now they're telling me that they can't pay their bills and they want me to give them some money. So in our older world, our seniors want to help out. They really want to help out. So they're more likely to not think it's a scam. And so we want to encourage people to check twice. Check that that's a scam. It's okay to check twice. No one's going away. Go check with a trusted someone, like a family member, or check with us at Age Concern, check with the bank, check with someone, and then see what's going on. But yeah, the scams are getting more and more, and they're quite complicated. They look like real people asking for real money, and we know that these scams are out there.
So Stephanie, another thing as well is mobility and movement, for the elderly. So, what's your thoughts about that? So, what the age concern? It's doing to help this problem as well?
So exercise is important for us all. You would know that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
How it's good for your physical wellness and for your
Yes.
mental wellness. So there's no reason why it's not important when we get older. So we run a range of exercise programs, and they're not like fit boxing, but they are things that bring joy but also exercise to our seniors. So we run, fit, sit and be fit, or one of our wonderful exercise programs called Steady As You Go, and it's a slow, repetitive.
I love that. As steady as you go.
Steady as you go, and that's a classroom-based, peer-led. So older people are looking after older people doing exercise, because that's the other thing we know, that it's again the purpose and the connections, and older people love doing that. So it's a range of exercises you can do in your local community, in your local hall, in your local school hall, church hall, or community hall. So again, you can ring up and find out where we've got one of those Steady As You Go classes. But we also do companion walking, we do aqua jogging, we do a range of exercises that's good for our brain.
Also, we can volunteer as well, even to help with shopping.
The shopping, the driving, the supporting. As I said, that exercise class I mentioned, Steady As You Go, that class is run by peers who are volunteers.
Wow, that's awesome.
Older people who perhaps once upon a time liked being in charge of exercise class or a dance class, or just were able to help out in some way. Volunteering is great, and you can pick and choose what the parts you want to do when it comes to volunteering, unlike when you go to work and you have to do it all.
Yeah. So Stephen, another thing as well, the majority of elderly, I read that, just checking for you, they prefer aging place. So what's your thoughts about that? Some prefer aging place, but we have the concern about family members and want to put them, in some specific place, kind of the villages. And what's your thoughts about that?
I think it's really important you ask an older person where they want to live. Because why not? They'll know exactly where they want to live. If they want to live in a village with other village people, then I would support them to do that. If they want to live at home with the support of their family and other supports out there, because the community has funded and paid support to stay in your home, there's always some way of making that happen. And if you do need care at some point in your life, that's there for you as well. So it's thinking about in those senior years, and over 65 isn't very old. It's just so young. If you think about you might live to 105, that's 40 years.
Wow, yeah.
40 years.
Let's put things in perspective.
That's a few more years than you've been here. So 40 years is a long time to be in one place. So you might choose a few places.
Wow, that's awesome. So Stephen, what's your views about how can we age well?
We can age well by taking control of what we have, what we can control. So we can exercise, we can stay connected. We can plan for the next few years of our life. Make a plan. It can change, but if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. So think about what you want to do. Where do you want to live? What do you want to do when you're there? What do you want your community to look like? Who do you want around you? They're all things that are normal, or thoughts around you aging, or even changing jobs. Do you want to stay and work? It's really important to you. Stay and work. The age of retirement there is no age of retirement in New Zealand. There's an age of receiving a pension. So you can get a pension and stay and work. You might want to stay and work, but not work less, but work a bit less. Talk to your manager. Or look at the jobs you're doing. Do you want to start learning something new? Start asking questions.
Yeah.
Start asking questions. Start thinking about what you want with your senior years. Start when you're younger. Start when you're middle-aged. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do today.
Yeah, true. Super powerful. Yeah.
We certainly tell our children, don't we, to make choice.
Yeah.
Make choice and change, but just keep going. Same as our seniors. It's so important that we treat our older community members with dignity and respect, and we give them choice, and they have choice.
Yes, that's beautiful. You know, I always, I read, you know, before, because as I was mentioned to you, you know, I like to do meditation, you know, I kind of, you know, I think, and I always said loneliness is a really good place to visit, but it's a horrible place to stay. It's a dangerous one to stay, you know? And it's related to those things, you know? So Stephanie, another thing is, what's the most common challenges do you guys face on the organization?
The biggest challenge from our organisation is having enough funds to do what we want to do. So it may be that we've got a number of volunteers, but we also need a number of paid staff to run some of those programs. So for any charity, it's how do we keep going in a time that money is tight, that there are many charities, there's much choice, there are a lot of economic pressures on families, on older people, that housing is an issue, to have a warm, safe house to call home when you can't afford one, and to have less choice. So housing in New Zealand is just at a phenomenal stage, and we know that we're going to see more and more heartache from our oldest community members when they can't afford homes. They don't have homes to live in, or they are encouraged out of their homes through the elder abuse space.
Yeah, that's a big issue. And also, do you have any kind of story, you know, during this period of working with elderly people? Do you have any story has touched you in some special way?
Well, there's lots of stories to choose from. I think one I can share with you is one just explains that there's always someone for everyone out there. One of our visiting service coordinators, so our visiting service is where we match our volunteers with older people who are lonely and housebound, who can't get out to see anybody, can't do the supermarket, can't go shopping, and can't get out to see the fresh air. So we have a system that we match those volunteers. Well, we had an housebound older person, one of our community across New Zealand. This older gentleman was quite a grumpy older gentleman. He was known to throw and swear and smoke quite heavily. And so when you're trying to match someone with someone who may not be easy to match, is a challenge. But the local age concerned went through their lists of volunteers and chose a few and discussed this particular visitor, this older person with the visitor. And there was someone there that said, yeah, I'd like that. I'd like to go and see him because I know exactly how he feels. So this volunteer started visiting this older gentleman. This gentleman was very grumpy, very angry. He was angry because his family wouldn't visit him any longer. And so his anger was coming out when the volunteer came. So the volunteer kept going and kept going and kept going. And at Christmas time, that volunteer got a card from the grumpy old man, and he wasn't grumpy so much anymore. Because finally, he mattered. They'd broken through. He just wanted to have purpose. He wanted a social connection. So I think there's someone there for everybody.
Wow, what a story. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, also, you know, so engagement, purpose, you know, not being lonely. I think those are the biggest lessons. You know, we should keep in check. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, we've all got a role to play. To keep an eye on our friends, our family, to be nice to people when we don't know what their backgrounds are, to be patient no matter who is in front of you in a queue.
Yeah, I love this. I love this this example you gave. Yeah,
and to also know that we want to be good. We want to age. Aging is a good thing to do, and so can we do that in a way that we plan for it? Some things we can't control. We can't control what we inherit. We can't control some components of our own physical limitations, but we can control our attitude at times, and we've seen that over the last year. So let's all age well together and look after each other, and let's be a very strong older community group that we are proud to be part of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So Stephanie, I know it's a hard question. The reason I like to ask this question is just because I think. I think some people are a little bit, doesn't have the information, or maybe a little bit naive as well. With the bad things happens as well. So do you have any story you could share about a very bad situation or with bad treatment with the elderly in your experience?
I don't think there's a bad treatment, but I think some of what can happen to an older person is they self-neglect. So that's where someone doesn't look after themselves. They may start collecting items, may mental health wise need some support. They may deteriorate to they hoard and they neglect, and that becomes a spiral, and they end up in a place that could be quite dangerous for themselves. So in a house full of stuff, in a place that they don't want anyone in the house, and a place that the community wants to help but they can't get in to help, and the system's not set up to help that person. So hoarding and squalor. So people who live in hoarding and squalor places. And I think that is part of our role as well, to come in and help where possible. And we have also got other parts of the community that are not easily accessible. Some of our community isn't age friendly, so there's no ramps for walking frames, there's no seats to sit in, there's no warm places to gather. So that we don't encourage those connections very well either.
Wow, yeah, Roder, yeah, because, so what do you mean by the system doesn't allow the help? Because if someone, yeah, that's an interesting thing, because if someone is just collecting stuff at their home.
But if maybe they're a fire risk, maybe there's lots of stuff, maybe they're not eating well, maybe they're not looking after themselves. Not just that, but they could be a danger to the community, or the community could think they're a danger to them. So there are things that you can't control as neighbours that you would like to control. And there's more and more older people who are ageing with mental health issues, or who actually, when they get older, develop some mental health issues that need some support. And our health system, sometimes isn't flexible or able to serve those community members as quickly as they need.
So what should be changed?
What should be changed? We're about to do that, aren't we? Because we've had a new health and disability review just launched recently. So they are going to look at how health services are funded, how health services are accessed, and how money flows through the system, as well as how health flows through the system. So we'll see what happens in the next 3 to 5 years. That might mean that more people have more opportunities to get support. I'd like to think so.
That's awesome. Oh, Stephen, so many good information here. Yeah, thank you so much for what you're doing. So now we have this section of the podcast when I make some philosophical questions. Okay. Are you ready?
All right.
Okay. So, Stephen, if you could go back to your 15 years old self and give advice, which advice would you give to yourself?
Yeah. So my advice is, why wait till I'm 15? It could be a 45-year-old advice. If I'm going to live to 105, I think my advice to myself at any point in time is be honest to yourself and take risks. Step forward into the risks, the great unknown, because you never know what happens when that happens.
Wow, I love that. So, Stephanie, do you cry?
I cry.
Yeah, when was the last time you cried?
Oh, my children always tell me I cry at movies, and it's probably at The Father was the last time I cried.
The Father, oh, I'm gonna say I had my moment in that movie as well. Yeah. Because even we are talking, I did enjoy, but yeah, that's not even the word, for that type of a story, it's not even that, but yeah, I had some tears there as well. Because
it doesn't make sense, does it? It's a movie that gives you insight into things you can't control or don't understand. And you want to, you've got a big heart. You want to help people, and in that situation, we just had to watch the situation play out.
Yeah.
And watch the confusion that family went through, and the upsetness of the older man as he didn't understand what was happening.
Yeah. So true, so powerful, very powerful.
So yeah, I think that you are going to learn more about dementia, not from me, but from the experts that know a lot about what to do and how to do, and how to be able to help in that case.
Yeah. So Stephanie, the most 3 influential books in your life.
Oh, the 3 influential books. You didn't give me any warning on this one. Well, the first one, of course, has to be my anatomy and physiology book when I was a nursing student. I found that absolutely fascinating to know that there were so many things inside us, all our organs, bits and pieces. What would another one be? Now I can't remember the author, but there's a range of books. Oh, I can. Geraldine Brooke. And I think it's called The People of the Book. It's a story about a particular Bible that was travelled through centuries and how important that was, the written word. So I think that was very powerful. And a third book. I'm just going to default to the movie I've just seen, The Father.
Yeah. That's so. Yeah, we are make a massive advertise for this movie, but it's a good one for good reason.
Are you going to have it coming across the bottom?
Yes, because I have some students, and and I was watching, and I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna recommend this to this guy, to this guy, to this friend, because I know they have, their parents are going through that the same phase.
So would you tell them anything before they went into the movie?
Wow, yeah, good question. Normally, because the people who knows me know I don't watch many things, but when I recommend stuff, it's because really touch my heart, and especially because I think movies has such a powerful, this powerful effect on us, and could be used for different reasons, and I think that movie was exactly what I think movies should be, to make us think and to bring some perspective and some things, and kind of educate ourselves without being a documentary, And I think that's how I felt after the movie. I said, you know what, this was an educational experience.
It is an educational experience. I think it gives you great insight. I had dinner with some friends last night, and they had two of the women had both seen this movie, and they both had their fathers had dementia. And I said, oh, was that a bit raw at this time? Your father's only passed in the last few weeks. And they said, actually, they wish they'd seen it when he was still alive, so they understood him.
See.
So I just thought, actually, how powerful is that? Yeah.
Super powerful. So, Stephanie, that's the powerful one. What's life? What's life is about?
What's life about? Life, yeah, it's a very good question. On a Friday afternoon.
It's my favorite question of the podcast.
Life should be satisfying. Life should be honest again. It should be satisfying, and it should be one hell of a ride.
Wow, yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
You can have that bumper sticker.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Stefan, thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for what you're doing as well for our community. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, again, it's all about education. I felt this was an educational moment as well for me again, and I'm pretty sure this is gonna bring some good information for my students, for our community. Yeah, so thank you, and please keep doing what you guys are doing.
Thank you for letting us and sharing it. I think the more people that understand they've got choice, they've got power themselves, and they can help their families and help themselves. We can move through much easier together if we know what we're able to do. But thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.